Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Coach Andres, registered dietitian and nutrition coach. Super excited for you to be here. And in today's video, I'm going to teach you a little bit more about calorie estimations, how to calculate your needs, how to adjust them according to whatever goals you may have. Super excited to bring you some really interesting topic here today. So I want to make sure that you're super on top of this. If you have a notepad, I think it would be pretty good for you to take some notes. I'm going to explain calorie estimations. Let's first obviously understand what calories are. Calories are a measure of energy. The actual chemical definition is like the amount of energy required to raise the temperature of water by 1 degree Celsius. But you don't really need to know that information. You're here to know how many calories does your body require, or does it need actually for specific goals, whether it's fat loss, maintenance and health, weight gaining, and so forth. So today I'm going to break that down. But there's 3 things that you got to understand, because there's different ways and methods in which you can calculate nutrition needs or calorie estimation. So today we're going to be breaking those down into all of the ones that are going to be. Number 1, first of all, this is how dietitians, when we go to school, this is how we're taught to estimate nutrition calories, using this like fancy equations that take into consideration your age, your height, your weight, and in some cases, obviously, your gender. So whether you're female, male. Now, these are complicated. And sometimes when you go to Google, they may use some of these calculations, but they're based on something we like to call like regression equations. So you don't have to really understand that too much, but we're not going to be using this. I just want you to understand how we typically dietitians estimate your calories. We're going to completely delete that. Now, the second thing, I used to work in a company called ASPE, and I'm really still good friends with them, and they have this system and this method or this machine called Indirect Calorimetry, which is essentially, they call it a MEC card. It's this tube that they put in your mouth and you breathe through it, and it's calculating oxygen consumption, so what you breathe in, and CO2 production, or carbon dioxide, which is what you breathe out. So based on those calculations, this machine can estimate the amount of calories your body is burning on a daily basis. Not only that, but then what is your fuel preference? What is your body using on a resting state? Are you more predominantly using carbohydrates, or are you more predominantly using fats? It's a pretty fancy machine, and it's actually pretty accurate, and it's a lot of the times how these equations are created based on the measurements of this. However, it's expensive, and it's not really something that you have access to in many places. If you live in bigger cities, there are places that you can go, you can pay, and you can actually get direct access to that, and you can literally measure how many calories you need to be consuming, or your body's using on a resting state. It measures like basically for about 50 minutes or so. Now, the way I'm going to teach you today, which is the easy way, this is the part of it that you can start to take some notes in, is going to be like simple factors that you can usually do with a calculator and knowing your weight or your goal weight. Here's some of the things that the easy way that you can estimate and calculate your calorie requirements. First, you're going to take your weight. Now, your weight, you're going to take it in pounds. Very, very simple. Now, you're going to multiply that to obtain what we call your BMR. BMR stands for basal metabolic rate. See, calories are split up into many different components. First of all, you have your BMR. This is the amount of calories your body requires just to stay where it's at. Basically, if you were sitting on a daily basis, if you were just laying in bed, this is the amount of calories your body would require just to survive. So that's what we call your BMR. Now, those are not all the calories your body uses, because eventually you get out of bed and you do things. You move your hands, you're walking, you're speaking like I am right now, you exercise, you walk, you do all these different things. That consumes energy or calories. So we need to start to account for activity on a second instance. And this is something I'm going to explain how you can definitely estimate based on your cases. Let's say in my case, I'm 172 pounds and just kind of round it up to 170 times 10 is a very simple number, 1700 calories. That's what we call by my BMR, which is a big percentage of the calories that I need daily. After that, we need to decide, well, I need to figure out my activity factor, and this is going to be heavily dependent on the type of person that you are. Are you a person that is sedentary? You're sitting on an office job or office desk most of the day, and you go out there and do CrossFit for 30 minutes, then you will probably consider a sedentary person maybe kind of running into active. So maybe you will be in the higher end of these factors that you're going to use to multiply your BMR. Now, maybe you're an active person. You're a person that is walking around all the time. I have a couple clients, she's actually a hairstylist. So she's like standing most of the day, walking around from place to place. So her activity, she's probably not going to be sedentary because she also exercises, and then she actually remains very active throughout the day. So in that case, maybe her activity factors are going to be anywhere between 1.4 to 1.6. And that's okay. I have another friend who's also a construction worker. He's very, very active. Not only he does CrossFit 1 to 2 hours a day, but at the same time, he is like doing very physical labor or physical work on a daily basis. So his calorie levels may be on the higher side as far as activity. So once you know this, you multiply it based on what you feel is your case, whether it's like very active, sedentary, whatever may be the case. And this obviously can change. In this case, I actually calculated this for mine based on the lower end of the spectrums for activity factors. If I was a very sedentary person, 2,000 calories. If I was like somewhat active, 2,400 calories. If I was somebody very active, 2,700 calories. These numbers are going to represent the amount of calories your body requires for maintenance. And this is what I use as a dietitian to estimate your numbers and your macronutrient needs, which we'll get to that in a different video. But this is basically where we start. Knowing this information, that we can kind of start deciding what are the goals and what kind of changes do we need to be making based on this process. So for example, let's say that you're trying to drop body fat and weight loss, which is most of you guys watching this video. So we're gonna go into, I'm gonna switch over to the side, and then we're gonna adjust according to your goals, whether this may be like weight loss in this case, and we're gonna create a calorie deficit that can range in percentage. So a percentage of calorie deficit that you're creating based on these numbers that we already calculated. Again, this varies from person to person, and I don't ever like to start way too high, or meaning like way too many calories restricted. It really depends on where you're at, and I'm going to explain a couple things here in a minute before we move forward into that. Theoretically speaking, when we take those numbers, if I create a 10% calorie deficit, that means 240 calories that I'm actually going to take away from these numbers right here. And I'm using, by the way, the 2,700 calories, thinking that I'm super active. And then if I go to the 35% end of the spectrum, we're talking about 900 calorie deficit. This means I'm going to subtract from this number right here. So that's going to eventually give me somewhere in the ranges of 2,500 calories that I'm going to be consuming, down to sometimes even 1,700 calories, which is actually pretty low. Like if right now I would drop it to 1,700 calories, I would be pretty upset. So that's why we don't really want to start on the very low end of the spectrum. But this is it. This is how we actually estimate some of the basic calories. Now here's the thing. If you're new to this group and you're just like starting to, or you're new watching this video and new to this entire conversation of calorie estimations, what I would suggest you do, if you're not part of our Nutrition 101 coaching program, what I would suggest you do is start tracking your calories and your nutrition for a 7-day period and understand exactly where are you at on here. How many calories are you consuming daily? Now, when you have now your estimations and you understand how many calories your body needs and you have these numbers already calculated, then compare those two numbers. Where are you? Are you like a person right now that is like extreme dieting and consuming like 1,200 calories daily? Then maybe a number that is super high is not realistic at first, and you need to start adding calories back up very slowly to make sure that you're kind of getting to a number that is more realistic for you. Because what happens is when most people start to diet, their calories are so low, eventually your body adapts. Your body is always adapting, and that's why these numbers are always changing. So for example, let's say that you've been consuming 1,200 calories for a long time and you're so frustrated because nothing is happening. Most likely what's happening is your body is adapting to that situation. In fact, believe it or not, your body moves less when it's like on a very low restricted diet, mainly because your body doesn't like to lose weight. It doesn't really like to lose fat. It goes against what we call balance or homeostasis. So you need to keep that in mind, in consideration, and that's why most of our clients, what we do is that we don't really go down, we actually bring them up when it comes down to calorie levels, because that's what's going to help them achieve better results and better goals. And it's something that is going to be more realistic, and you're going to be happier because you're going to be eating more food as well. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube and you want to be a part of this Facebook community, feel free to click on the link below in the caption so you know how you can join. Thank you guys so much for watching here today. If you have any questions, as I said, put them down in the comments. I'll be more than happy to answer it for you guys. Take care.